working group on the 2030 agenda was set in 2019 when there was a demand by the International Association of Universities to answer like an international survey about the level of integration and transversalization of the 2030 agenda in the teaching plans and the research in international universities. That particular situation led to the Catalan system of universities to create at that time this working group that was especially formed by representatives from the 12 Catalan universities. During this almost 4 years working together as a system of Catalan universities, I would say that there have been three main milestones. The first one was to try to do a kind of overview of which were the main actions that already the 12 Catalan universities were already deploying in their own places. To do a kind of mapping out of those things that were already in place and that somehow were resemble and align with those sustainable development goals of the 2030 agenda. That was very useful because somehow let us see which was the commitment at this stage of Catalan universities with the main core of the 2030 agenda, which at the end of the day is sustainability. And that was useful to see that. The second main step of or achievement, I think, has been a little bit more proactive, which was to design and set out together a kind of action plan. And that was a process that entailed a very long discussion among the representatives of the 12 universities. I think it was a very interesting process that led us to see that there were of course different aspirations, different knowledge about the 2030 agenda and different capabilities, but that all in all allow us to put in place a joint agenda that was basically broken down in 4 main areas, which was research, teaching, governance and campus activities. And finally, I think that the most interesting aspect that all in all has led us to see and to acknowledge as a very positive practice is the fact that we have all moved as a whole or joint system. So the 12 universities, although they have very different commitment or capabilities. Of course, they're very big universities, and maybe there are others that are not as big as the others. All of them, we have worked as a system, and this word, the idea of becoming a system or acting or behaving as a system, has been something that has been especially put as a positive, as a very positive aspect. I think in this particular aspect there have been 3 main challenges up to this moment, which the first one of course has to do with the context. The pandemic context was a very challenging moment in which we acknowledge to what extent universities and the rest of stakeholders are suffering from a very overwhelming reality, which is a global situation that is really pushing us to try to overcome many different difficulties, that of course affect the possibility of universities of implementing the 2030 agenda in their different institutions. I think the second one has to do with the fact that universities at the end of the day do not have the same volume, capabilities or rhythms. So this leads us of course to see how some universities have more possibilities or willingness to implement some of these different commitments, are others that have more difficulty. So at the end there are sort of asymmetries in this particular challenge. And finally, I think there's one aspect that has to do with the university in itself. It's a very old institution which is very static most of the times, and when trying to implement most of these like actions, we acknowledge that at the end it's very difficult to pass them, because at the end there are like a lot of bureaucratic like challenges or steps that we need to overcome, and that at the end of the day do not make things easy, no? The Agenda 2030 has become a priority for universities. And this is especially due to the fact that the international system of universities has acknowledged the 2030 Agenda as a powerful tool for, and with a transformative like character, to move university institutions forward in their like process of course, being transformed in a very challenging and very like a changing context. So it acknowledged that the 2030 Agenda can be a powerful tool for an internal transformation. And at the same time, I think the 2030 Agenda is also acknowledged to be like a very important roadmap that move all the international stakeholders to the same type of challenge, which is how to address the issue of climate, like crisis, sustainability, and so on. Although in a rhetoric-like way, universities have put this as a priority, at the same time, in terms of transformation, things are much more difficult to move forward, because as I said before, institutions move normally very slowly, and in that particular very changing and challenging context, we need very quick like processes and transformation. So there is a kind of gap between what we need to do and the rhythm that we need to do and to address this particular issue, and the reality, which is much slower. So what it would be very important is to move, or to try to move a little bit like faster, especially taking into consideration that the Agenda 2030 is coming to an end. We are like right in the middle of the 2030 Agenda, but in a couple of years, or in 3 years probably, we will be already discussing the Horizon 2045, which will be the next agenda. So this leads us to really take advantage of the next years to try to take the Agenda 2030 as a very like important and relevant tool for transformation in universities. For university leadership, the Agenda 2030 has become a paramount like roadmap for transformation. And this is, without that, one thing that we can acknowledge in most of the universities, and especially in the Catalan system, in which most of the universities have put at the very forefront the 2030 Agenda. But again, there is an aspect that has to do with resources. Which are the resources that are somehow allocated to put in place those measures that could like bring those universities to a real like transformation of their like teaching, of their like research, and the different like activities to really make the 23rd Agenda a priority and a reality in the short, but especially in the mid like term.